So the greatest threat to America long-term is our mounting national debt. And while we might not notice the day-to-day impact of it, the national debt is partially responsible for the higher taxes, inflation, and increased borrowing costs. Currently, our national debt has exploded to over $37 trillion. And debt has been the downfall of many nations. Just look it up. So why isn't anything being done by Congress to reel it in? Well, our friend, Texas businessman Joe Penland Sr., or Joe from Texas, there he is. He joins us now with his thoughts on this. And we bring him in because you were in D.C. recently. You were attending a conference which celebrated the 238th anniversary of the signing of our Constitution. I know there was a lot of discussion there about increasing, the increasing debt that we face and warnings about its potential to cripple our future. What was that conference about, and what was the discussion about our national debt?
Well, the main thing that was on the topic that day, Jody Arrington, chairman of the Budget Committee, talked about the fact that the Constitution gives us the right to call a convention and override our national government when we see things going amok, which is our national debt. We've had that. We have to actually cross a couple of thresholds to do that. We have to have 34 states that want to call a convention, and we have that. We've had that back in 1979. It was ignored all the way up until 2016, 2017. We crossed that threshold again. Now, this would be a convention solely for the debt, reining in our wasteful spending and our debt. Congress has ignored that twice, and had repeatedly, I guess, for about 40 years now, ignored it. And Jody Arrington gave a press conference to that effect, and we had news media there. I don't know who all they were, but afterwards you didn't see anything anywhere on any news media except for two op-eds, one I wrote and one Jody Arrington, Dave Walker, and Bruce Lee wrote together, and that's the only publications I've seen about it. But it's coming to a head. There will be a convention whether Congress wants it or not.
So, I mean, most people kind of roll their eyes when the national debt is mentioned because, we've been warned about it. Too much spending, too much borrowing. We're, digging ourselves a big hole on debt. Why should Americans give a hoot, especially if things mean things that they like might get cut? I mean, you take a pencil out of the budget, and certainly the left goes berserk. But talk about the warning signs here.
Well, when you have $37 trillion worth of debt, and a lot of that is to foreign lenders, and some of those people don't like us in the first place. So they're aligning themselves with some bad actors. China's aligning themselves with Iran and some very bad people, and they're our number 3 lender. Japan's our number 1 lender. And, it's one thing if you owed yourself. If we owe that to pension funds here in the United States and to people that invest in this country, that would be one thing. But when you borrow $8 trillion from foreign countries, and now they're backing off, China is backed off of buying our bonds. And what that means is it's going to be harder to sell our debt as time goes on. If it gets harder to sell it, the interest rate's going to be higher. That's going to be passed on to our children and grandchildren. I think that's completely unfair for America to leave that to our children.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, there are so many countries that have been, have collapsed. Look at Greece, look at Argentina, many of them for so many reasons for spending way too much. We're not an exception to this rule. It's going to happen at some point if we don't get our act together. I know you wrote a column for Newsmax about how states have been advocating for Article 5 intervention. Explain what Article 5 is. You talked about it briefly before, but most people don't even realize there is an Article 5, which says, kind of power to the people. It's never been done before, and you mentioned that it's going to come to a head. But explain Article 5, and then how do you get it to come to a head?
Okay, Article 5, our founders put that in the Constitution as a safe gap for us to be able to rein in our government. The states were first, the federal government came after that. That gives us the ability, if we see something wrong, that we can call a convention and try to get things back in check. We have to cross the thresholds that I talked about earlier, Rob. You have to have 34 states. We've passed that many times, and Congress has ignored it. They can't ignore it anymore. Jody Arrington has brought it to a head. This will happen sooner than later, I hope. We have to get this done. But the Constitution is clear on it. It doesn't say they might get it done or they should get it done. It says shall call a convention. So that they're a derelict of their duty right now. They have not done it. Congress doesn't. They're trying to kick the can down the road. Nobody wants to be responsible for this, but I'm sorry. Whoever is sworn in right now is just going to have to bear that.
And there's no, for lack of a better word, statute of limitations for when a state passed it, right? I mean, once it's on the books and they're in favor of it, that stands, correct? Until you get to the 34?
That's correct. And we've passed that, and we
Right.
passed it again in 2016 and 2017. We did it again. So we'll get this done. That's the only way to get Congress to address our debt. Nobody wants to do it. They want to stay in Washington. They like that they got the job. They like the clout when they're there, the popularity, whatever it is. But somebody's got to make the tough choices for this country. And thank God our forefathers put it in there so we could have the ability, the states, to call in the federal government.
But some blue states that passed it in the past are looking to rescind it, correct? And you still need 2/3 of the House and Senate, right? Which is going to be pretty darn hard with the leftists and progressives who love spending, by the way. They're probably against it, right? So, I mean, it's still a tough fight.
Well, it's a tough fight, but there's two ways to call a convention. Congress could call it. That would be the 2/3 with the House and the Senate, or the states can call it. So we have already crossed that threshold. We do not need Congress to do it. We can do it ourselves as the states.
Good. All right. Well, we got to watch this, and I appreciate you pushing forward because it is a major issue that gets no discussion whatsoever with massive consequences. Joe, it's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate it.
All righty.